On the night of the 24th of August 2001, Toronto's Pearson Airport was alive and bustling like always. Air Transat Flight 236 was ready for departure to Portugal. Inside the Airbus, A330, 293 passengers were settling into their seats, some excited to meet their families, some dreaming of vacation, and others hoping for a fresh new start in life. Along with them were 13 crew members, fully prepared to serve and protect everyone on board. In the cockpit sat Captain Robert Pitchie, a 48-year-old veteran with 16,800 flying hours. He was a master at gliding and flying with precision. Beside him was First Officer Dirk de Jager, a sharp and talented 28-year-old aviator. At 12:52 a.m., the aircraft lifted off the Toronto runway and disappeared into the deep blue night sky over the Atlantic. Everything was peaceful. The cabin lights were dim, passengers were sleeping, some whispering softly, and the crew calmly doing their duties. Below them stretched the endless dark ocean. Above them, a sky glittering with stars. None of them knew that this beautiful, calm night was about to turn into the most terrifying and unforgettable night of their lives. The morning that started it all, 4 hours into the flight, everything still seemed normal. Then at 5:03 a.m., a yellow warning light blinked in the cockpit. Fuel imbalance. It meant the fuel in the right-wing tank was decreasing faster than the left. Captain Pitch assumed it was just a faulty sensor, something that wasn't unusual. To correct the imbalance, he ordered fuel to be transferred from the left tank to the right. This was a standard procedure. But on this night, it became the biggest mistake. Unknown to the pilots, the right engine had a fuel leak caused by a maintenance error where the wrong hydraulic tube had been installed. And when fuel was transferred, the leak became even worse. Every minute, 13 kilograms of fuel vanished into the freezing Atlantic air. A faint smell of fuel was sensed by a flight attendant at the back of the cabin, but the night was too dark to see anything outside. In the cockpit, the pilots had no idea their plane was slowly bleeding to death. The situation gets worse. For the next 30 minutes, confusion took over the cockpit. Fuel levels were dropping impossibly fast. First Officer Dirk recalculated again and again, but every result pointed to disaster. "Sir, something is very wrong," he said. "The fuel is disappearing like there's a leak." Captain Pitch had finally realized this wasn't a sensor problem. The nearest land was the Azores Islands, about 300 kilometers away. With only ocean beneath them, they had no choice but to head there. At 5:45 a.m., another alarm blared. Right engine oil pressure low, temperature high. The right engine, engine 2, was dying. Captain Peach radioed air traffic control. "We have a suspected fuel leak. We need to divert immediately." Engine failure, the nightmare begins. At 6:13 a.m., at 38,000 feet over the Atlantic, engine 2 coughed, shook violently, and shut down. A terrifying vibration spread through the cabin. Still, the pilots hoped the left engine could take them to safety, but hope lasted only 13 minutes. At 6:26 a.m., the left engine failed too. Both engines were gone. The giant Airbus suddenly turned into a silent, powerless 300-ton glider, dropping 2,000 feet per minute. Emergency lights came on, air conditioning cut out, and a shocking silence filled the aircraft. Passengers screamed, cried, prayed. Mothers clutched their children, some wrote goodbye notes. Everyone believed this was the end. The pilots fight for 306 lives. Captain Pitch remained calm, almost monk-like. This was where his glider training became the difference between life and death. He kept the aircraft at the perfect gliding speed of 280 knots, about 550 kilometers per hour. A small device called the ram air turbine deployed automatically below the aircraft. Spinning in the wind, it gave just enough electricity to power a few critical instruments. Dirk radioed, "Mayday, Mayday. Air Transat 236, both engines failed. We are gliding." Azores emergency teams raced to prepare. Runways were cleared. Fire trucks and ambulances lined up. Everything now depended on the two men in the cockpit. The aircraft descended through clouds, but still no land was visible. Time was running out. Then suddenly Dirk shouted, "Land ahead! I see lights." They were not runway lights, but the lights of a small Azores town still. They meant land, and land meant hope. Captain Peaches smiled for the first time. He aimed the powerless aircraft toward runway 33, a landing almost impossible without engines or hydraulic pressure. Lowering the landing gear was nearly impossible. Dirk warned, "Hydraulic pressure is too low. Gear may not lock." "Do it manually," Captain Pitch ordered. They cranked the gear down by hand. Now came the hardest part, landing with no engines, barely any brakes, no reverse thrust, limited steering at 7:04 a.m. The massive Airbus hit the runway at 370 kilometers per hour, a brutally hard landing. Tires exploded. The plane bounced. But Captain Pitch kept it straight. The aircraft raced down the runway like a burning comet, and finally came to a stop just 700 meters before the end. Silence, and cries, and applause. They were alive. All 306 souls. The miracle of the Azores glider emergency teams rushed in, covering the plane in foam. Passengers slid down emergency slides, crying, laughing, touching the ground in disbelief. Only 18 people had minor injuries. When the pilots finally stepped out, Captain Pitch knelt down, lowered his head, and whispered, "We made it." Everyone around them applauded. That day, the world met the heroes of the Azores. Investigations later proved the maintenance team's error caused the leak, but the pilot's skill and calmness turned a massive tragedy into one of aviation's greatest miracles. The plane became known forever as the Azores glider. Moral of the story. This story reminds us, when humans push the limits of courage and skill, even death has to step back. 306 people saw death up close that night and woke up to a new dawn of life.